The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 15th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Friends, you may be seated. The reading is pretty long, as you notice in Celebrate. So you sit down and let's hear the story. This is a reading from Luke. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So Jesus told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the young son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country. And there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his field to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pot that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against you, heaven, and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slave, 'Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father had killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him, but he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate my friend. But when this son of yours came back, who had devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. Then the father said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we have to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and had come to life. He was lost and has been found. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Good story, isn't it? It's a good story. Today's reading is known as the parable of the prodigal son. I'm sure in one of the time in your life you've heard that term, the parable of the prodigal son. But I want to ask you, have you ever heard any other titles about this story? Besides the prodigal son, and goes like, it's always prodigal son.
Wayward son, I've heard that.
Huh?
Wayward son.
Wayward.
Wayward.
Interesting. That's new to me. I've heard somebody call this, it's a parable of the loving father, because father is so full of compassion. And also I have heard somebody said this is the parable of lost sons, because it seems like at the end, the father lost the one son, the younger one, and also the older one. So parable of the lost sons is another thing. But also this is a better title of this parable this year, and I'll share with you and tell me what you think. How about called this parable as the story of the baby in the family who always gets away with everything? I don't know how many of you are the oldest and how many of you are the monkey in the middle and how many of you are the youngest in the family, or that you are the only child and have no idea what I'm talking about over there. I'm the youngest, and I'm the baby in the family. So my siblings, my older brother and sister, often tells me that I got away. Many things easily. That's what they say, and you know what? I come to think they are probably right. Look, I'm the child number 3. By then, my parents are definitely relaxed. They even did not prepare for any baby clothes when I was born because they had wars. It didn't matter by then. And I had lots of freedom to do and try, and which probably my older brother and sisters were not alone when they are growing up. So I really benefit to being a youngest child, and I really understand very well about this, the younger son's desire to explore somewhere and don't hesitate to ask really rude things to the parents, and I really get those things, and I can easily identify with the younger son in this story. But this morning, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the father, because that really speaks to me. Because this father is a loving one. This father loved his sons, both of them. So the way I found This love of the father in the story is the father sees. In verse 20, when this younger son was coming far away, it's still in the distance. And remember, this son has left and not be around for a while. This is pre-social media. You don't have the pictures to see what's going on in their life. So if somebody, your kids went out for college, away, and come back, you might not recognize immediately. You might look a little different. And actually, there is a true story about that. Like my friend who studied overseas in the United States, when she came home after studying in the United States, at the airport, her father didn't recognize her. Do you know why? There's a good food in the United States, ate too much pizza and donuts. That's what my mind said. But that's really happened if you don't see a couple of years. You may not recognize, even it's your own family. And on this story, we heard this son who was well-off family went out, used all the money. Now he's working. And there's a famine. He was hungry. No wonder he looked a little skinnier than they remember. And maybe a little look older or tired. And maybe a little bit look miserable. Coming home. But this father saw this son from the distance and ran to him and hugged him and kissed him. That's love, isn't it? And this father also sees his this older son. It's rather say this way, this father recognizes or notices his older son's absence at the party. If you have been going to the party and the music and dancing and foods are going, quite a number of people, you may not see everyone who's there. But this father, in this parable, he noticed the absence of his older son. And he went out the party to meet his older son, right where he was at. I've never been a parent, I do not know. But to me, it sounds like a love. It's willing to meet where your child is. One of the time, the mother of her 3 grown-up children told me this way. She said that my kids don't think this way, but I have to tell them I love them all 3 just differently. My love appeared just differently. In the parable, those 2 sons, they might not have understood that the father loved them. Both. Perhaps it's a little different ways. For one, to the younger one, this father, out of love, let him leave the house and explore and experience to fail. That's the love he offered. And for another, the older son, Out of love, this father taught him how to do the family business, sharing his wisdom learned from multiple trials and errors he experienced. Both are love. This father loved both. And I have to say, it's easier to say it like that. Easier to say, parents love their kids in the same way. But if it's in our own family and with the family dynamics, that's not always easy to admit that. But I think it's important when we read this story to notice this father certainly had a love for his children in the same. So the parable of the prodigal son, or the loving father, or the lost sons, or the youngest gets away with everything. This story that we heard was told when the religious leaders were grumbling about Jesus, who was eating with tax collectors and sinners. Eating with somebody is not just sharing the meal. It means they are part of the community. It means I belong to you and you belong to me. These tax collectors and sinners, they are the people in the time of Jesus. They existed in their community, but they were not welcome. But Jesus saw them, went and met them where they were at. That's what we talk about God's love. Or at least that's what I think. Because the God's love may look different to each of you and your family members. But the love is love. Love is the same. It's not one loved more or less. Love is just love. So, this is the way I want to leave you today. So I just want you to feel relaxed, which probably many of you do all the time. And put a smile on your face, which I know you do all the time. And live each day with this assurance of God's love, that you are loved regardless. Whether you are very obedient and do the right things all the time, or you are grumbling and angry sometimes. It does not matter. God's love is the same. And I want you to remember, our God is always too generous, too radical, and too crazy. And that outrageous love gives us the life this day and every day. Amen.